Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm the host, Sam Sachs, and this is that source for anti-capitalist news and analysis. It's the Friday show. Thanks to everyone who welcomed us back from the break, including those of you expressing concern about how the new background and lights make me look old and sick. We're working on that issue. Hopefully by next week, we'll get it sorted and get me, the newsman, looking a little better for y'all. I mean, I am getting old as shit, so there's only so much we can do to remedy that. But we do hear you, and we are working on it. In the meantime, you just have to deal with me looking like Boris Karloff. The first batch of legal documents related to the investigation of convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein were made public this week, revealing names of high-profile individuals who were associates of the disgraced financier. Now, most of the names revealed were already known to be connected with Epstein, including former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Neither are accused of any wrongdoing in the released documents, although one of Epstein's victims, a former assistant of his, Joanna Schoberg, recalled in her deposition that Epstein once said that Bill Clinton, quote, likes them young, referring to young women. And there are, of course, videos of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein partying together and leering at young women. Now, much of the newly released material comes from depositions related to the case against Epstein's main accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of child sex trafficking in 2021 and is now in prison. Schoberg also testified that during her time working for Epstein, she met a number of celebrities who attended parties at his residence, though she does not allege that they participated in any sexual activities or that she was ordered to give them massages. Those celebrities included Michael Jackson and magician David Copperfield. Now, whether or not Copperfield participated in Epstein's sex trafficking operation is unknown, but it does appear as though he knew what was going on. Schoberg testified that the magic man once asked her if she was aware that, quote, girls were getting paid to find other girls. According to the deposition, Copperfield did not elaborate further on his question. If I were him, I would make myself disappear right now. Other records released are from the deposition of another Epstein victim, Virginia Giuffre, who details how she was ordered to give massages to former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson and have sex with Thomas Pritzker, the billionaire chairman of Hyatt Hotels. Documents also shed more light on allegations that had already been public related to the participation of British Prince Andrew and attorney Alan Dershowitz in Epstein's sex crimes. Giuffre testified that Prince Andrew sexually assaulted her, and Schoberg said in her deposition she recalls seeing Giuffre and Andrew together. Schoberg also testified that Andrew touched her own breasts one night while they were all together in Ghislaine Maxwell's London townhome. Epstein's former housekeeper testified that she saw Alan Dershowitz, quote, pretty often at Epstein's Florida mansion, and while there, he received massages. She also said that Dershowitz was at the mansion without his family and in the presence of young women. But again, this stuff had already mostly been known about. More documents are set to be released in the coming weeks, revealing the names of more than 100 other people in Epstein's orbit. Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019 in his prison cell in New York City under, let's just say, highly suspicious circumstances. CNN's coverage of Israel's war on Gaza has been almost entirely awful. There were two exceptions: the recent report inside of Gaza hospitals by Clarissa Ward, and that time Wolf Blitzer glitched out when asking an Israeli military official over and over again, why they bombed a refugee camp. But other than that, it's been a platform for some of the worst IDF propaganda. And according to The Intercept, there's a reason for that. CNN is routing all of its reporting through its Jerusalem bureau, which is subject to a strict military censor. According to an unnamed source from CNN who spoke with The Intercept, quote, every single Israel-Palestine related line for reporting must seek approval from the Jerusalem bureau, or when the bureau is not staffed, from a select few handpicked by the bureau in senior management, from which lines are most often edited with a very specific nuance. That specific nuance being a bias that favors Israel. The Intercept previously reported on 8 topics that Israel's military censor restricted reporting on. They included information about the weapons being deployed against Gaza, information about hostages, and information coming out of war cabinet meetings. Knowing this, CNN's reporting on the war makes a lot more sense. Remember, it was CNN that broadcasted claims of scores of beheaded babies, a lie pushed by the Israelis with the intent to dehumanize Palestinians, to link them to ISIS. CNN also promoted the largely unfounded claims that Hamas fighters systematically raped women, that they used sexual violence as a weapon of war. Remember when host Dana Bash grilled Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal and implied that progressive groups didn't condemn these rapes? This is what CNN was focusing on as the death toll in Gaza passed 10,000. And it was CNN's leading man, Jake Tapper, who just ahead of the Israeli raid on the Al-Shifa hospital, published a story claiming that Hamas had a command node under the facility. Story aimed at justifying the upcoming attack on a fucking hospital full of civilian war victims. No command center, no node were found, just a bunch of dead babies who died in the assault. And somehow Jake Tapper is still allowed on air. But you don't need to watch him. Turn that war propaganda off. "33 Democratic senators signed onto a letter urging auto CEOs not to interfere in worker organizing campaigns. Following its labor fight against the big three of Ford, GM, and Stellantis, the United Auto Workers launched an historic organizing campaign at more than a dozen companies that aren't yet unionized. And already, there are reports of union busting by some of those companies. Last month, the UAW filed a complaint with the NLRB against Volkswagen, Honda, and Hyundai. The union said the companies confiscated and destroyed pro-union materials and threatened organizers with punishment. The lawmakers referenced those abuses in calling on companies to commit to neutrality in any union elections. Quote, "We strongly urge you to implement a neutrality agreement at your plants and commit to negotiating in good faith if your employees do elect to unionize with the UAW." Yeah, cool, okay, but it doesn't mean much. There's no threat behind it, although the lawmakers did reference a potential pressure point when they wrote that a neutrality agreement is the, quote, bare minimum standard manufacturers should meet in respecting workers' rights, especially as companies receive and benefit from federal funds related to the electric vehicle transition. I'm thinking of legislation, a bill that would strip all federal funding from any auto company that the NLRB finds to be violating their workers' rights. Do something like that, and we're cooking. But a letter simply urging CEOs to lay down their arms against an organizing campaign without a threat, that won't do shit. Rich Dicks is back. Let these assholes run rampant for a month now with no recourse, but no longer. I am your justice. I am your retribution. Let's check out those nominations on social media. We've got not one, but 2 nominations for genocide Joe Biden, picking up right where we left off last month. For as long as this administration supports Israel, Joe will have that nickname and a standing nomination. Here's one for Aaron Rodgers, the QAnon quarterback, for once again spewing a bunch of nonsense, this time about Jimmy Kimmel being on the Epstein list, which he's not, but injecting that sort of disinformation does provide cover to the rich and powerful who are on the list. Nice work, Aaron. Got one here for the Cargills, the giant agribusiness family. Also one here for Alan Dershowitz. You can pick whatever reason you want for his nomination, his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and alleged participation in the child sex ring, or his steadfast support for the Israeli ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. His name has been thrown around as a possible defense attorney for Israel before the International Court of Justice. No bigger scumbag around than this guy right now. Strong nomination. And finally, Arona is back with a nomination for all the goddamn landlords, particularly Delegate Marie March from the Virginia House of Delegates, who's also a landlord and was recently accused of discriminating against an elderly tenant and allowing an employee at her property to sexually harass tenants. Wow, she sucks. Thanks for the nomination, Arona. Thanks to everyone for their nominations. But in the end, I make the decisions around here. And this week's Rich Dicks are the insider traders in Congress. Wow, the first time a bunch of clowns get the dishonors. An annual report from Unusual Whales documented the activities of Congress's most prolific stock traders. It found that 33% of the 100 top traders beat the market, or beat the SPY, a fund that tracks the S&P 500 index. Leading the pack was Democratic Congressman Brian Higgins, who is holding on to Nvidia stock that he purchased in 2021 ahead of lawmakers passing legislation to boost the semiconductor industry. Stock has quadrupled in price over the last 15 months. The most active trader in Congress is also a Democrat, Rep. Ro Khanna. He made more than 4,000 reported trades last year. He's also pushing legislation to ban members of Congress from making stock trades. Whether it's a giant act of cynicism to distract from his own financial dealings, knowing that the bill has no chance of passing, I'll let you be the judge on that. The report also revealed which lawmakers are benefiting from Israel's assault on Gaza. Representative Kevin Hern bought Raytheon stock in September before the October 7th uprising by Hamas, and Rep. Josh Gottheimer bought Northrop Grumman stock less than 2 weeks before October 7th. Both companies have seen steady stock price gains in the months since. Gottheimer is a staunch supporter of Israel's military campaign. Senator Tommy Tuberville has been making a killing off a penny stock he invested in ahead of the Ukraine war, Humacta, that later secured a contract to do tissue transplants in Ukraine. Tuberville sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee. But the most intriguing part of the Unusual Whales report were the unusual trades made by some lawmakers, the ones that smell real fishy. Yes, I know a whale is a mammal. Looks like Nancy Pelosi is back to trading Nvidia stock. She and her husband sold their Nvidia positions in 2022 amid controversy that she was pushing that semiconductor bill in Congress while investing in companies that would directly benefit. As Speaker, she has a lot of control over what bills come to the floor or not. Well, the Pelosi's weren't out of the game for too long. In November, they jumped back in. This is from the report, quote, 1 week after President Xi visits her home state of California, and before Biden announces new U.S. semiconductor focuses, her husband decides to buy $2 million of deep-in-the-money Nvidia calls, the same company she divested from due to conflicts a year earlier. What's worse, on December 11th, before she bought in November, U.S. Commerce Secretary Raimondo said that Nvidia could sell slower AI chips to China to comply with U.S. export controls. And then on December 28th, this is after Pelosi purchased the stock, NVIDIA launched a modified version of an advanced chip precisely to get around US restrictions. Wow. Lucky timing, I guess. Lucky would also explain trades made by lawmakers amid the banking crisis in early 2023. Congresswoman Lois Frankel just happened to sell her shares in First Republic Bank right before its price dropped 80%. Almost a week later, she invested in JP Morgan before news was made public that the firm would be buying First Republic Bank. Now that's really lucky. I'd like to go to Vegas with Lois, or with Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis, who, according to the report, bought shares of New York Community Bank Corp 24 hours before the bank announced it was acquiring Signature Bank, another institution that went bust around the same time. Look, I think we all know what's going on here. You can believe if you want that members of Congress just get luckier than the rest of us with their investments, or that they're just better at stock trading, but I'm not going to believe that. These motherfuckers are trading on privileged information, the same sort of shit the feds went after Martha Stewart for. We already have to deal with these pricks going to Washington and voting however the Chamber of Commerce tells them to vote so that they can cash out and be a lobbyist later. They shouldn't also be able to get rich off insider trading while doing it. And so Nancy Pelosi, Tommy Tuberville, Brian Huggins, and all the other members of Congress who beat the market, you're all this week's rich dicks. And that includes you, Ro Khanna. Yeah, you're not fooling anyone. All right, friends, the show ends this week with a sunrise from New York City. It was sent in by Pete in Brooklyn. Enjoy. Thank you, Pete. Show's over. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV and subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also find us on social media. One day, capitalism will fall. Until then, we're going to be right here. See you next week.